The movie starts in the dream of a girl named Alice. In her dreams, she is injured and roams through a forest with a pentagram-like symbol in her hand. She is bleeding in her head when suddenly she starts screaming and wakes up from the dream. As she wakes up, she notices her mother is shivering in the cold, so she gets up and adds more wood to the fireplace. In the next scene, Alice notices some marks of an unknown disease on her mother's body. Her mother starts coughing, and blood comes out. She is getting weaker. Alice brews some medicine and gives it to her mother. Alice takes off from her house to the forest to find some medicinal plants. Along the journey, she washes her mother's blood-stained clothing in the river, keeping watch to ensure that no one is spying. While picking plants, Tom, the town preacher and de facto leader, interrupts Alice. He asks Alice about the absence of her mother at the recent prayer. As soon as Tom finishes his message of faith, Alice rushes back to her house without saying anything. Tom is suspicious about her mother's disease. In the village, there is a plague spreading. An ominous masked figure named the Cleanser gathers people with the disease and dispatches them. When Alice heads back to her hut, she notices Tom speaking to the Cleanser while gesturing at her. Alice quickly goes back to her hut, locks the door, and uses anything available to prevent anyone from entering. Soon, there are footsteps towards her house, and someone starts banging on the door. Alice tries to hold them back, but the Cleanser breaks the door. Tom holds Alice, and the Cleanser checks her mother's disease and dispatches her. One of the religious preachers takes her mother and disposes of her body. Following that, the Cleanser sets the bodies on fire. Watching the bodies burn on blazing fire, Alice looks at the cult with vengeful eyes. On the next day, Alice is downhearted at her mother's demise. She takes her mother's notebook and starts crying. Then she goes to the forest and burns the notebook. On her return from the forest, she meets with Tom. He has fixed her door. Both of them enter the hut, and Tom apologizes for his actions. He also adds that the Cleanser wants to hold Alice to account for her action of concealing her mother's condition. But Tom convinced the Cleanser that Alice is still young, and her emotions carried her away. Tom adds that everyone in the village should have faith in the Lord and must help each other to see their way through the plague. Tom gives Alice apples. Alice consumes them with hunger. Tom starts to tell Alice that she needs a place to live and offers her a place in his house. As he indicates she could marry him, Alice spits on his face. Tom gets angry, takes back the apples he gave her, and gets out of the hut, saying that Alice will soon beg for his mercy. Tom then tells every villager that a great demon has possessed Alice. As the sunset casts its eerie glow over the small village, Tom's mind is filled with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. Summoning the villagers, he tries to voice the urgency over Alice's matter. Soon, the hushed whispers and anxious glances fill the air as the villagers gather, their eyes fixed on Tom. It's clear that an unsettling aura of suspicion has settled upon their hearts. The villagers question Tom about Alice not being held accountable for her actions. As the murmurs grew louder, Tom grows more uneasy. He realizes that the villagers believe he harbors emotions towards Alice. As a person of the religious establishment, he has to put an end to such a horrendous accusation. With measured conviction, Tom begins to weave a narrative that both intrigues and frightens the villagers. He convinces everybody that Alice has an evil aura, and her survival when her parents passed away is the proof. In order to punish Alice for her crimes, he suggests that he can compel her into confessing that she is to blame for the pandemic. Mary tries her best to support Alice, but Tom is annoyed by her. Tom regards Mary with a mixture of appreciation and apprehension. He knows that her words hold weight, that blind accusations could lead to dire consequences. Tom has to make an unforgettable tale out of Alice, who has repeatedly disobeyed his instructions and, according to him, even those of God. The next morning, Mary brings Alice in front of Tom. Tom said to Mary earlier that it would be a discussion in a civil manner, but there are men surrounding them. Tom then ensures that the discussion will indeed be held in a civil manner and asks Alice to sit. Tom then asks Alice to read a verse from the Holy Book unfalteringly. He adds that one who cannot read the Holy Book unfalteringly is touched by the devil. When forced, Alice shuts the book instead. Tom then tells Alice that he shall check her body for the marks of the devil. He says that the devil leaves marks on the body of one it touches. Tom then orders the men to hold Alice down. Mary tries to stop the men as they start undressing the young girl. Tom makes Mary leave the hut. The brutal operation of undressing Alice continues, as the men take pleasure with their eyes. As they try to find any such marks on her body, they all remain in their thoughts. Tom asks everyone to leave the room so he can talk with Alice alone. Tom then approaches Alice and tells her that he can stop all this at once. He just wants Alice to marry him. Once more, Alice spits in his face, and Tom immediately hits her. Tom drags Alice outdoors and declares that he will conduct a trial by water in a fit of rage. The villagers are instructed to drown Alice in the water in the next scene, and Alice is informed that the only way to halt this is to utter the Lord's Prayer. Alice feels defeated by the cruelty and can't believe how people would support such a monstrous man. However, no one comes to her aid. Alice's head is repeatedly pushed into the water again and again, continuously, by the villagers. Tom orders the soldiers to stop and declares a trial by fire instead. When he realizes Alice may not survive if this continues, Tom then starts the trial by fire. He says that the witch heals unnaturally, like the devil. He needs to establish a sense of superiority and make Alice suffer as horribly as possible to make a statement of fear among the others. To make this happen, Tom orders the villagers to make Alice hold a stone that has been in flames. If she heals within 3 days, then she will be considered a witch and will be executed. If she doesn't, she will be treated like a normal human. As Mary tries to question Tom, Tom gets angry and threatens her. Tom then gives Alice a last chance in front of the villagers to say the prayer. But as she remains silent, Tom asks one of the villagers to put a burning stone in her hand. Alice starts shuddering in pain, but holds her pain inside, and her hands burn severely. Later that evening, when Alice is being hung on a cross, a villager named Victoria, who believes Alice used sorcery to dispose of her husband, curses her and demands that she confesses to a crime she did not commit. In the early morning, Tom visits Alice with a glass of water, but disposes the water instead of giving it to her. That night, Mary lets Alice free and tells her to run away as far as possible. Alice escapes from the village and runs away. Along her way, she grabs some herbs and applies them to her hand. Then she falls asleep in the middle of the forest. Next morning, Tom is informed by the villagers that Alice is gone. The villagers seem happy that she is gone, but Tom tells them to search for her, and adds that the only way to be certain that the curse has been lifted is by searching for Alice. The villagers obey Tom's instructions and start to seek her out. Alice, on the other hand, wakes up to a strange noise. She becomes scared, as she can hear a creature moving around the forest, and starts running. She stops in a hut isolated within the woods and knocks on the door in fear. All of a sudden, a guy holds a handkerchief over her lips and knocks her out. Tom and the other villagers can't find Alice. The locals are happy that she won't be visiting the village again, but Tom is heartbroken. Tom then plans to punish Mary for her actions. Alice wakes up in a hut with weird things put here and there. She finds a weapon near the bed. She takes it and walks out of the hut and encounters a man named Tor. The man offers her food instead of hurting her and apologizes for knocking her out. He claims he had no option but to knock her out because he has too many things to protect. He asks Alice if she can speak, to which she replies in the negative. Later that evening, Tor asks Alice if she will stay or leave. Alice finds him safe and chooses to stay. Tor tells Alice about his fascination towards roots and the natural compound. He introduces Alice to a root which helps humans to overcome their fears. As he burns the root, Alice lies down on the bed. When she wakes up, she hallucinates the cleanser dispatching her with a knife. She then sobers up and begins interacting with different items in the hut. She picks up a pot and begins to sniff it, but Tor stops her right away, warning that it might be hazardous to her health. He then explains how important the compounds are to him and offers to apply some medicine to her hands. While mending her hand, Tor comes to realize that Alice has some knowledge about medicine. He tells her how much nature's secret intrigues him. He starts to tell her a story about his travel on the ships with his dad. He continues, explaining that men would carry the powder Alice saw earlier, which is very dangerous. People choke and bind on it, and many would meet their end. Yet they appeared magical to Tor's younger self. He claims he switched to medicine since the plague has cursed them. He adds that he had a daughter who around Alice's age. She was also taken by the plague. He tried to save his daughter by finding a cure, but it was too late. Later, Tor leaves Alice to her sleep and heads out to gather some ingredients. As he leaves, Alice starts meddling with his compound. He comes back to find Alice taking his ingredients and starts accusing her of theft. Alice then speaks out and tells him that she also wants to find the cure. She requests Tor teach her about herbs so she can help him. Tor starts teaching her about herbs and compounds. The two become friendlier to each other and start to live together. One fine morning, Alice and Tor are preparing their food when they hear a sound in the nearby forest. Tor becomes alert as he picks up his weapon and instructs Alice to stay put. He then wanders off to the forest. Alice picks up a weapon warily. When a man appears from behind, Alice gets scared and stands defensively. The man simply asks her if there is any food to spare. Suddenly, Tor arrives and attacks the wanderer. The fight becomes intense, and at one point, the wanderer starts hitting Tor, sitting on top of him. Witnessing this, Alice brings some food out, and he leaves Tor and immediately starts eating. Tor realizes that the wanderer is no threat. The wanderer asks if there is more food to spare. In the following scene, Tor gives the young man some food and asks him about his identity. The man answers that he is a trader from the east. He trades many things, such as wool, fur, and silver. The young man continues by saying that his horse bolted, as a result of which he fell and lost everything. Tor tells him that he is not welcome in the hut, as there is not enough space or food. The young man once again requests for a place to rest for a while, and asks Tor's forgiveness for hitting him, as well as Alice's for frightening her. When the young man asks about the relationship between Tor and Alice, Tor lies that he is her father. Moreover, he tells the young wanderer to speak to him, instead of talking to Alice. Tor gives the young man a place to rest for a while, but Tor is surely agitated by the presence of the young man. The young traveler asks Alice whether she is unable to talk, or chooses not to, later as they sit in front of an outside fireplace. Alice responds by nodding her head and saying she can talk. As they are talking, Tor interrupts them and asks the traveler to tell him his stories. The traveler claims he is exhausted, needs to rest, and might be able to share some tales with them the following day. He again thanks them for their hospitality and hopes to repay them someday. Later that evening, as the sun is about to come down, Tor gives the young wanderer some clothes and tells him to leave. Tor observes the mark that the plague leaves behind as the young man removes his garments. He attacks the traveler and threatens him, imploring him to leave. The traveler seems to have no idea about the plague and is shocked to learn the truth so suddenly. The man then ensures that he will leave and will not come back to the hut. Tor disagrees with his idea and tells him that he must see him departing to be sure. The two of them leave for the woods. That night, Alice and Tor are having dinner. When Alice expresses that she is upset because of the way Tor handled the stranger, Tor asks Alice why she chooses not to speak. He also tells Alice that she should face her demons inside to overcome the fear. Alice looks at Tor with a questioning eye. Tor answers Alice. He faces his demons every day, and Alice has no idea about it. Alice stops eating and tries to walk out of the hut, when Tor reveals he has the disease too. Alice looks at him with big, shocked eyes. Alice slowly walks towards Tor and takes a look at his shoulder and finds the mark of the disease. Tor tells Alice that he is running out of time. He tried to cure it, but there is not much time left. Tor then explains to Alice that he can help her with the things she is scared of. Later, Tor offers Alice the root and explains that, although burning it has a milder effect, eating it has a stronger effect. Tor continues emphasizing that the root will lead her on a dangerous journey, where she will discover the truth and must face it fearlessly. She takes the root without hesitation and goes to sleep. Meanwhile, the cleanser visits Tom's house and finds him with Victoria. The cleanser asks Tom about the news he heard about finding the source of the plague. Victoria interrupts their conversation, saying she is a witch. Tom tells everything to the cleanser. The cleanser confirms to Tom that he will take care of the witch by himself. Tom asks the cleanser about Alice's accomplice, Mary. Cleanser tells Tom to do what needs to be done. Alice wakes up in her dreams in the middle of a forest. She sees her father and starts following him. As her dream continues, Alice becomes injured near a waterfall. She finds a pentagram in her hand. Her father scolds Alice when she starts talking about a woman saving her from underwater. Then she shows her father the pentagram that the woman left her. He orders Alice to throw it in the fire and forbids her to leave the house. From the harsh treatment, Alice becomes angry and says that she wants her father to lose his life. Hearing her words, her father falls down and soon becomes sick. Her father passes away from the curse Alice uttered. After that, Alice discovers a place in her dreams. It is a cave. She visits the cave as soon as she wakes up and finds the body of the young traveler. It is the hideout of the cleanser. While returning to the hut, scared, she finds the cleanser chasing her. She quickly gets into the hut and locks the door. She begins looking for the powder, the one that negatively reacts with water. Suddenly, the cleanser breaks the door down and approaches to attack Alice. Alice finds the pot with the harmful powder and throws the powder towards the man's face. The cleanser can't breathe properly and takes off his mask. Alice looks at him with horror, as he is none other than Tor himself. Tor is the cleanser that eliminated Alice's mother, and the one who disposes of people with the disease. Tor informs Alice that he is aware that she is a witch, in an emotional and angry manner. Moreover, he blames Alice for the plague, and assumes that she is the one who cursed the whole village, including Tor's daughter. Tor threatens Alice as she attempts to defend herself, saying that if she says even one word, he will assassinate her. Tor doesn't want to become enchanted by Alice, as Mary did. Tor asks Alice if the friendship between them was also fake. Alice bursts out in anger, saying he is the one who slaughtered her mother. She claims that, like the young traveler, she wanted to help her mother, but Tor took away her opportunity. Alice says to Tor that she cannot forgive him for the crimes he has committed, but is willing to accept him for who he is. She asks Tor if he can accept her for being a witch. Tor replies with disgust that he does not believe her, and commands her to lift the plague from the village, to which Alice replies she can't. Tor calls her a liar and attacks her when Alice uses her power to stop Tor with just words. She then commands Tor to pour water on his body, using her powers. Tor pours water on his face, and the water reacts with the powder and eliminates him. In the following scene, Alice wears a witch's attire and approaches the town with vengeful eyes. Alice starts a fire in the center of the village and sets all the hallucinogenic roots on fire. The villagers gather and look for the cause. A villager searching for the source of the forest fire with a torch notices an evil entity slowly vanishing into the air. He exclaims loudly about a devil and orders her to reveal herself, when all of a sudden, Alice comes at him from behind with a knife, stabbing him. When two villagers search for the devil, one of them notices that the other is a mirror copy of himself, but is blind. He strikes him with an axe after becoming scared. He only learns that it was the other villager after eliminating. Tom hears the villagers screaming, "Devil," in fear, and orders Victoria to go to her home and close the doors. A villager sees Alice in her witch attire and starts following her. He loses her for a moment, when all of a sudden, Alice appears from behind and blows the harmful powder towards the man. The man slowly passes away. Meanwhile, Victoria reaches her home, and when she hears a noise in the walls, she looks behind it to find Alice. Victoria tells her that she already knew her secret, and that they should have let her drown that day. Alice summons her supernatural abilities and commands Victoria to sip poison from a cup. Victoria suffers a prolonged, agonizing end after ingesting the poison. Walter and Tom stay alert and look for Alice. Walter confesses to Tom that he is seeing other things, like the branches of the trees growing outwards. Suddenly, Walter starts screaming, looking at his own arm. He sees a pentagram being drawn in his palm, cut into the skin. He cuts off his hand, as he can't take the pain. Walter tries to cut off Tom's hand, hallucinating a similar pentagram being drawn, when Tom eliminates him in self-defense. Tom hears whispers and calls Alice to face him, when suddenly, he sees Alice behind him, and he stabs her. But the one Tom eliminated is the villager who saw the mirrored version of himself. Alice knocks Tom out from behind using a handkerchief. As he wakes up, he finds himself on the cross he once used to hang Alice. Tom tells Alice that they are both sinners, and to let him go so that he can pray for their sins. Tom accuses the devil of making her the way she is. Alice disagrees with Tom, and says it is Tom who did this to her. Tom asks her to say the prayer, for proof that she is not a devil's accomplice. Alice says the prayer, and stabs a knife into Tom. Then Alice rescues Mary, and tells her that the girl she knew is long gone. Mary disagrees with her, claiming that she has come back.